It is a lot, frankly, to digest. That's why Supervisor Ellenberg and I have continued to ask for information in advance as much as possible. I believe that we should all understand the budget. So even if it's complicated, we need to have the information. I hope that our new budget system will be able to provide this more easily because, to be frank, it's been a challenge to actually get some of these answers. And my staff and I have been working on this. We didn't get all the answers in time. I think I was going to ask some of the big ones. There's some reconciliation items I'd like to ask, but I'll save the others and resubmit them and ask for staff to respond to those in writing. But I'll say overall, yes, this is very difficult. It's been 17 years since the Great Recession, and that was probably the last time that any of us has dealt with something major like this. Frankly, I would say because of PEPRA, we've had a lot of turnover, and there are very few staff who are with us who were back in the 2008-9 era. So this is probably new, and maybe the first time to see such drastic impacts on the county. I understand that much of this has come from HR 1, and that's probably why we've had to do some mid-year adjustments that we normally wouldn't have. But I would point out that there's actually been a structural deficit for several years now, and the big overall concern I have is when costs are increasing at a faster pace than revenue is increasing. That's the ultimate problem. So that's something that is just, continuous. You have to work on. I appreciate that we've strengthened our reserve policy, but that's just, day to day, every day, every year, discipline that we have to be working on. And I know it's hard when times are good and there's, funding available. There's always going to be needs. So, there's a desire to fill that need, but for internally to keep our organization strong and to prepare for these types of crises, because they do happen, we have to just be very disciplined on a yearly basis. I very much appreciate from a workforce perspective that despite the reductions in positions, most of those staff will be able to transfer to other positions, but I did see that we factored in a salary savings from those vacancies at about 2.57%. As we fill those vacant positions, the assumption is that is going to diminish. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's actually a slightly lower, so I think you're referencing the portion of the report similar to Supervisor Ellenberg that describes the base year forecast for the upcoming year. That's actually a slight downward adjustment from our current year and prior year salary savings factor. We've always had a salary savings factor built into the base budget to basically recapture, so to speak, on an ongoing basis, some of the savings associated with natural turnover and vacancies. And so that's an allocation that every department carries as part of its Object 1 appropriation. That number has been adjusted downward slightly precisely for the reason you just mentioned, which is we track that against actuals and have noticed that with the deletion of so many vacant positions over the last several years that it's becoming very hard for departments to stay on track with that. And so that's a slight downward adjustment from the 3% that's currently assigned to departments.
So then next fiscal year, will we expect to see an even lower percentage?
Possibly. I mean, we will continue to look at it based on actuals and based on, what the forecast is of departments. There'll always be some amount because, there'll always be some level of turnover. Mm-hmm. And I should say, it's not a complete across the board because there are some departments where they're carrying higher percentages of vacancies than others. But it's essentially an attempt to make sure that we're not, without preventing departments from appropriately filling budgeted positions, it's an attempt to capture for budgeting purposes some amount of vacancy-related savings so that those can actually then be used to either preserve other things or be spent in a good year, be spent on other programs or initiatives, and in a bad year, like we're in now, be used to preserve and reduce the number of cuts that we have to make.
All right, thank you. Going to following up on some of the other questions or comments regarding these reductions in positions, Valley Health being one of them. The other area that is highlighted here in the mid-year position reductions, the 41.5 positions in behavioral health. And I know we had the study session earlier. What are these reductions? How are they going to impact services?
They're all vacant positions. So for every
So these are
department
all
on that list except SCVH, DTAC, and that one position in ESA, all the rest of those positions on that entire table are vacant.
Okay. Okay, well, that's good.